In 2003, I joined Sky Sports presenters Phil Clark and Steve-O on a charity walk through Rugby League land. This year I retraced my steps in search of the culture of the game, the poetry in its soul and the song in its heart. It kept me off the streets for a while. And where better to start than here on the River Hull, the traditional dividing line between Hull KR and Hull FC territory. But there's more to this city than Rugby League, even though this book, Crap Towns, calls it the worst place to live in the whole of Britain. To my mind, it's a place of culture, of the poets Larkin and Marvell, a city full of history where the Civil War effectively started and where Wilberforce fought against slavery. It's a city of superlatives, is Hull. It has Britain's biggest Chinese restaurants, the biggest travelling fair in Europe, the biggest council estate in Europe, and this, the longest single-span bridge outside of Japan. The phone boxes are the wrong colour, and they call them fern boxes. They have streets called things like Land of Green Ginger. And Hull is probably the only place where, if you had an empty theatre to fill, you'd write a play about Rugby League. That's what John Godber did at the Hull Truck Theatre Company with Up and Under, and what his company has done again with Kicked Into Touch, centred on the 1980 All-Hull Challenge Cup final.
Both teams are enjoying a homecoming on their open-top buses.
Rugby fans, monkeys in scarves, that's what they are, monkeys in bloody scarves. You think it were noisy on the coach? Wait till you see what it's like in old city centre. Ha!
My background was quite academic. I'd got a doctorate in German Expressionist theatre. So what do? You're in Hull, you've come from near Castleford, you've got a theatre to fill. Do you do Oscar Kokoschka's Murder of the Hope of Womankind? Or do you write a play about rugby league? Despite its success on stage, it took an awful long time to get funding for the film, didn't it? It took me 17 years. And I'm actually quite convinced that had that been a play about rugby union, it might have taken me 17 minutes. And I think there's something in that about the marginalisation of the game, even now. By the time we got people interested in the script, and I'm serious when I say 17 years, the full Monty had been made, Brastoff had been made, and the genre of kind of Yorkshire films had passed its kind of sell-by date.
I shall get myself a suit made to show I'm in the fishing trade.
There used to be 365 trawlers operating out of Hull, one for each day of the year. They wouldn't get you through a week now.
All me pots are pint-sized, watch me getting paralysed.
There's no denying that the collapse of the fishing industry left a big hole in the economy of Hull. I went looking for the fishing fleet and I was told I'd come too late and that the only thing really left now are a few monuments like this one here to a captain who died of shock just 100 years ago.
And when I get to skipper I'll get married and the nipper. I shall take the lad to sea with me and I'll teach him all I can.
Terry Walker remembers the 3-day millionaires, as they used to call the trawlermen, renowned for blowing their wages before heading back to the treacherous fishing grounds. Terry is a hero of a different kind, taking his son Scott in his wheelchair to games all around the country. Hiya fellas, how you doing? Fancy seeing you here. Scott, you and your dad get to more games than I do. How on earth do you manage it?
Well, Dad just gives up his time to take me to rugby matches and I appreciate that.
Do you remember your first game at the Boulevard?
I can't remember, Dave.
You must have been very small then, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I was about 9 when I saw my first game, Dave.
Yeah. Scott has cerebral palsy, but his determination to be involved with everything to do with rugby league is the stuff of local legend.
I wonder if I didn't enjoy it as much as Scott did. I mean, he's met some great people through it. I mean, I just happen to be the bloke that stands behind the chair and pushes it. But I don't mind that. We met a lot of good people at all the grounds we go to.
He's done some refereeing as well?
Yeah, he used to referee school games and children's games, and he actually refereed a match at the Boulevard. He used to sit on my shoulders and he used to run about and he'd blow the whistle and everything from my shoulders. But as he's got a little bit older and heavier, I've had to stop that because it was hurting and damaging my neck, really.
Yes, I can imagine. The person most instantly identified with rugby league in Hull, though, even 40 years after his retirement, is Johnny Whiteley. At 75, Johnny might still be one of the fittest men in Hull, and I believe it's illegal to use his name without putting the title gentleman in front of it.
And touched the gate at the end.
In over 500 games for club and country, he was never sent for an early bath, though he admits there were times when he might have been.
We were playing Featherstone in the Yorkshire Cup final, and the game came on at half-time on BBC. Well, a lad called Anderson, John Anderson, was a great friend of mine, but he kicked me 3 or 4 times on my shin, you know, and he'd play the ball, he'd kick me. And I'd say, next time, John, just watch it. Well, within half a minute of the game, I gets up to play the ball, and he pulled his foot back, and I thought, well, I ain't going to give you a chance to kick me. And I hit him just hit him, and I caught him flush on the jaw. Well, he went flying backwards on his back. So the producer or director who was with Eddie Waring said, well, if he's gentleman Johnny Whiteley, he said, I don't want to know the villains.
Hull has its critics. Some say it's a city gone to the dogs, which is what's happened to the Boulevard. But it still feels to me like somewhere a bit special, a bit different. Something was amiss in the place the Romans used to call Placid Legentium. There was something strange about the town on the banks of the River Calder. Not only had its industry and economy taken a further good kicking in the 2 years since I walked through there, but for the first time in its history its rugby league club wasn't in the elite. One or two local landmarks had changed rather alarmingly as well. Castleford always used to be known for two things, coal and rugby league. And the two used to feed off each other because so many of the great players from this area used to work down the pits as well. Now the pits have all gone, apart from those transformed into something unlikely, like this ski slope that used to be Glasshoughton Colliery.
Like we said, this is what we call a break.
Mick Logg symbolises the way the emphasis here has changed from making things, digging things out of the ground, to leisure and retail. He was a miner for 29 years and is now a ski instructor, from the black stuff to the white, as he puts it.
A lot of people thought I was a bit daft, but the coal industry was coming to a close, and I thought, well, what do I want to do? And the only thing that stuck in my mind was something I'd enjoy. After a 29-year down pit, I thought, let's go for it, and I managed to get an instructor's course to go on, which the coal board helped me through the Regeneration Trust.
The only people I've ever known come to Castleford, they came to watch rugby league. But
that's
now
correct,
come from a fair distance for this, don't they?
The farthest I've known anybody come from who I've actually taught is the Isle of Man. Two girls actually told me that they've got a plane over to Liverpool, a train from Liverpool up to Wakefield, and then a taxi from Wakefield to Castleford, all for a ski lesson. Do
you think that skiing will ever replace rugby league as the sporting passion of Castleford, though?
I'd like to think so, but I don't think it will. I think rugby league got a big following in Castleford. They're dedicated to the team, no matter whether they win or lose.
Despite the temporary setback of playing in National League One, all roads still seem to lead to the jungle on match day. All the higher paid stars from last year had gone, but there were still 8,000 fans there for the visit of Hull KR. And despite their fall from grace, reminders of Castleford's glory days are never far away.
Can you please welcome the one and only Malcolm Reilly, OBE, and Roger Millward, MBE. And I'm Mick Morgan, AHC, Captain All Colliery.
Going back to when I played, predominantly a lot of the guys who played down here were involved in the coal industry, and of course there isn't one now. Literally, it's just off the map. Ixon and Welsh have closed, which was a huge sponsor previously of the club, and a lot of jobs went on the line there. So I think this is now currently the most important vocal aspect of Castleford as a town.
More talk, boys, in defence.
And without the rugby league, well, there's still, despite the ski slope and the retail park, little to offer the town's youth. Dean Sampson, for so long a cast stalwart and for a while the coach of the junior players at the club, knows full well what the alternatives are.
There's not a lot for young guys out there, especially young guys who haven't sort of taken the best out of their educational options. And what can they do? They can either play sport. The take-up and success rate is probably 1 in 30, 40. So, the options there are particularly good, or chances. So, to make a fast buck, an easy option, yeah, sometimes crime is what some of the guys will turn to, and unfortunately that's indicative of society in general, I think, at this moment in time.
It must have seemed like a disaster to these fans when Cass dropped out of Super League, but Castleford is a place that helps you get these things in proportion. Unlike other things that have happened here, it's a disaster that proved to be reversible.
Bridges and rivers and buildings pulled down. Time spent in places my footsteps had found.
This is one of the more surprising spots in Rugby League land, this vast area of heathland on the fringes of what was once the second most important city in Yorkshire. Somewhere up here, Wakefield Trinity played their first games. No one's sure where, and it might seem unlikely, but then plenty of other things that have happened to the club have been equally unlikely. There's something about Wakefield that lends itself to the telling of tall tales. It's one of the few places in the country to have sustained its cycle of medieval mystery plays. Oliver Goldsmith didn't write The Vicar of Leeds or The Vicar of Castleford, he wrote The Vicar of Wakefield. And as that most mythologised of matches, the water splash final with its last minute missed conversion. And the Canterbury tales were reworked for television and were told by Trinity fans on their way to Wembley, perhaps for that final. It must be something in the water, and it's inevitable that this should be the setting for the one great film about Rugby League. This Sporting Life, which starred Richard Harris as Frank Machin, the miner who becomes a star with his local team, a thinly disguised Trinity.
It used to work, did it?
Keith Holliday was Trinity's scrum half in the early 60s, and he figures prominently in the film.
You finished up with something of Richard Harris's and a bit of a swap that you did with him, didn't you?
Well, you know, he come to Wembley 3 times. And he come in dressing room, which he was quite invited to come in dressing room, and he jumped in bath in his suit in one of the games.
Come on, Gower, get in that bloody ball! Come on, Gower! Pass the ball, man!
But the one I remember most of all is we played Huddersfield at Wembley. And when he come in dressing room, he says, "Gigi shirt, Keith," so I stripped off the Gigi coat. Swap your coat for it, you know. He'd can't think of it now.
Big sheepskin.
Sheepskin coat on, you know, they were very expensive. Straight away we swapped. Then, and that was it, and I come home with it and used it for a year. Then Wigan match come and we won again, and they were in again. And what was most upsetting for me was in a parcel when he said, "I'd just like to give Keith this," because he's got 3 children. And it was parcelled up and give me it. I never opened it there while ago, and it was a shirt that I swapped.
So there's one for each of them?
Yeah, one for each. I told lads and told lasses.
But you'd give his jacket away by then?
I'd give it to our secretary.
Dave Topless is a Wakefield legend who knows all about being a Trinity coach. He was the last of the part-timers and decided to take a break in 1994 to concentrate on his business. He's still taking that break, although he remains the star of the club's summer touch rugby competition.
No, it never quite happened. I was offered a few lower division clubs to coach, but I felt that, you know, I probably what I was saying had probably gone over the heads, and I never fancied coaching in the lower division, the second division at the time. So, in a Super League job never come available because I've been out of the game too long. There's still a lot that I think they could improve on. You know, I'm not a big fan of the 10-yard rule. I think it entitles people just to make yards sometimes. I was coach when Maurice Lindsay rang me up at home one day and just said they had an Australian referee, I think it was Greg McCallum, and I was at home and he says, "You're playing Hull and we'd like you to play the 10 metres. Well, we hadn't trained for it or anything, and that's how it started, just by a phone call, and we was the first game, Wakefield and Hull, that played the 10 metres rule.
Topo is the man who signed Henry Paul. After his time, Wakefield made bids for Jonah Lomu, Jason Robinson and the Johns brothers. He couldn't make it up. But this is Wakefield, where the line between fact and fiction has always been blurred. As the old photos of the glory days of Hunslet illustrate, the geography of rugby league in Leeds used to be very different. Nowadays, all the profile and the continuous tradition is in the north of the city at Headingley. Most of the players have always come from south of the River Aire, where Hunslet were at one time a club that could often compete with Leeds as equals. Hunslet, who left their Parkside ground in 1973, still have their memories and one of the most rousing anthems in sport.
People often ask me how Hunslet came to sing what they call their anthems, and it happened in 1892 when Hunslet went to the final of the Yorkshire Rugby Union Cup before the arrival of the Northern Union. And they played Leeds at Huddersfield and they beat Leeds by 21-0. And the Hunslet supporters were waiting for the return of the team at the Barnaby Tavern, which were the club's headquarters at that time, and they were late. But to pass the time on, the supporters were singing the songs of the moment. A bicycle mate for two and those things. And then they ran out of songs to sing. And there happened to be a sailor there who had fought with the Russians at Sebastopol. And he began singing a tune of a Russian sea shanty.
It's one of my regrets that I never heard it sung at the Parkside ground, but at the annual Players' Lunch, I put that right. I've waited a long time to hear this song from the men best qualified to sing it, so gentlemen, please, take it away. I enjoyed that, but the discordant fact is that the present belongs to the club from the wrong end of a city that claims to be Britain's best for business. And the booming city that Leeds has become just loves them at the moment. If rugby league has a capital city, Leeds is it. Hunslet might not be the force they once were south of the river, but the Leeds Rhinos, after decades of underachievement, have given the whole city a club to be proud of. They're world champions, and that's what they're celebrating here today. The players get the praise and the glamorous invites, but the Rhinos' success has also been built on the strength behind the scenes. That's where Stephen Ball comes in.
Got them. I'll get the camera to zoom in a bit closer.
In his role as stadium manager at Headingley, he oversees cricket and can just about tolerate rugby union. But he's a straight down the line rugby league man, and one with a dream.
We've come up with the idea of in fact, decorating a bridge on the M62. The Transpennine Walk, a bridge that goes over the M62, right on the boundary of Yorkshire and Lancashire. It will have 100,000 visitors a day, mainly going underneath the bridge, and we're going to call it the Up and Under Bridge. And everybody who travels on the M62 will ask the question, what's that about? And the answer will be, it's a celebration of rugby league.
Come on, Bromley!
Historically, Leeds was a city of 3 clubs, and now, once again, it's back up to strength with Bramley back in business in National League 3. They're known as the Villagers, but their horizons are broadened these days, twinning with the French club Avignon, for instance, getting advice from an unusual source when they're setting themselves up as a supporter-owned club.
And Barcelona is the example of Bramley on a scale writ large. I mean, we have a few hundred shareholders and members. Barcelona's got 95,000, and our strapline will be buy a share and sack the chair. Now, that's a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but I think it demonstrates the principle of what we're about, a principle that is no different from a very, very successful Barcelona Football Club.
From life in National League 3 to receptions at the Town Hall. It might seem a long way, but it's all part of the same picture, and in its way, just as well worth celebrating. Bradford still looks and feels like a Victorian city, a place where fortunes were made, as 2/3 of Britain's wool was traded here. I suspect many of the people who made those fortunes are buried here, in the vast cemetery at Undercliff. But in a rugby league sense, Bradford is a cradle of modernity. because it's here that the game adopted the brash presentation has become the norm in the 21st century. No club has embraced summer rugby in Super League and the razzmatazz that goes with it, quite like the Bradford Bulls. This is what they're all about, this family fun day that they've organised before kick-off. And the motto seems to be that if you have an empty patch of concrete, you put a bouncy castle on it. It's not aimed at miserable old gits like me who'd be here anyway. It's aimed at my children's generation, my grandchildren's generation, and everything that gets them in has to be a good thing as far as I'm concerned. It's hard now to visualise just how grim it used to be here at the bottom of the great bowl of Odsal. The fog rolling in down those terraces, bringing its own microclimate with it. They do things with a bit more style now.
Welcome to the Bradford Bulls Players Charity Poker Evening in association with SportsStarPoker.com.
If there's one man most closely associated with the transformation of this club, it was Robbie Paul. He might have seemed a bit of a gamble when he was signed as a teenager, but he was part of the furniture for 11 years. For the Bulls, and now for Huddersfield, he's a player with a hinterland. His painting, his DJing, his people skills.
You know, the interesting thing that I've found with the boys is everybody has their own style of game and it fits their personality, you know. Leslie, for example, he's over the top and he's you know, he's a larger than life character and he plays that way in poker. He plays really recklessly. So you know it's dangerous actually making any moves against him because he could have anything. I think the way they play poker is a good reflection on how they play rugby as well.
When the Bradford coach Brian Noble wants to mull over the cards at his disposal on a match day, he comes up here to the Chevin, overlooking Otley. First he swims a mile and then he perches on his rock, getting his thoughts in order as he looks across this vast Yorkshire panorama.
So, Brian, this is where you come before games to get your head sorted out. What sort of advantage do you get from this, do you think?
Well, it's a pretty nice place to sit, isn't it? And there's some great views either way, and a bit of solitude, I suppose, and other than people, you know, the odd person that recognises it, it's great. You get to get your own messages right for the team, you know, get your head around your own performance for today. I like views. I don't mean so much pictures or landscapes on paintings. I like to experience the real thing, and there's 2 or 3 views in my mind from the travels through Rugby League I've been able to go on, and you know, this helps. I think this is for me, one of the best places in the world. You know, it's a great backdrop, and you know, it reminds you probably how insignificant you are sometimes.
Do you ever get any funny looks and people telling you not to jump?
Yeah, got a couple this year. Yeah, you for me. Yorkshire people are generally honest. I think you might have encountered that in your life, and they're not frightened of giving their version of events. So you just say, you nod, you tip, you fall up. Thank you very much for your advice, and just get back on with your own stuff.
I don't think he'll be inviting me to share his rock again. The Bulls lost to Wakefield that day. There's something missing at Odsal on match day. It's a healthy representation of the city's big Asian population. That's an area in which Bradford might feel they're still falling short of their aspirations. The former Bradford and England winger Ikram Butts still turns out for the other Bulls, the South Asia variety, and in his job as sports development officer with the local authority, he's trying to change attitudes to the game.
To sell that game to the communities, what we need is some positive role models, and we don't have them. That's really important. Players playing at a high level, and there's none at all, and even players playing at the grassroots level, there's very few, if any, playing. And that's important to convince the communities that rugby is a game for them.
It's a challenge for a lot of clubs, trying to connect with the new communities on the doorstep. If anyone's going to succeed, it will probably be Bradford, because of the energy and enthusiasm that's made them the archetypal Super League club.
I've worked in Leeds and Huddersfield, and I've earned some honest brass, but I've been forced to work in town, so here's my litany from Hull and Halifax and Hell.
Hull and Halifax and Hell. Sounds like a particularly demanding run of away fixtures in the 1980s. And Halifax was once a seriously hellish place where stealing a bolt of cloth meant a trip to the gibbet in the town centre. And unless bowls is your thing, the last few years have been pretty hellish for sports fans in Halifax. The bowlers might have wonderful new facilities, but they're right where the Rugby League fans used to congregate, up here at the old Thrum Hall ground. So here we are, Dennis, roughly in the corner of the pitch, at the bottom of the infamous Thrum Hall slope. It's a bit different now, isn't it?
It's totally different. I mean, it's perfectly flat now, but when you look over into that corner, you're looking at a 15-foot slope when the ground was here. And when they dug the greens, they went down to the solid rock.
It was a bleak old place, wasn't it?
It was in the winter, especially when you had the fog and that. Yes, it was very bleak.
Okay. 40-20, I think that.
Not quite, it was dead in goal, it's a dropout.
Before the supermarket and the bowls moved in, Thrum Hall saw some glorious days. Tony Anderson was part of the last great era, and when he became Halifax coach, he tried to recreate that.
The memories are fantastic of this place. You know, the old scratching shed used to be right in front of us here. It used to be full, and it used to be like a 14th man for us when they got behind us and made a hell of a lot of noise, and the atmosphere was fantastic.
That was a Halifax team that was famous for working hard and playing hard, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, we did train hard, but we enjoyed each other's company, and we did enjoy a night out, and I'm sure that was one of the reasons why we had such great spirit and had a lot of success through a 3 or 4 year period.
You say it's folly to try to go back to a golden age, and follies are something they know all about in Halifax, with Wainhouse's tower, a factory chimney that got out of control. The plan was for the Shay here to be transformed into the new Shay as a state-of-the-art home for the town's football and rugby league clubs. The trouble is, there's never been the money to finish it, and it stands here now with its bare girders like a symbol of the rebuilding that's still to be done. It could still be a fine ground, it could still be a very proud rugby league club again, just a matter of putting it all together. Paul Dixon knew the good times at Halifax. He's now doing what he can to help rebuild the club as football manager. A big part of his day, though, is spent just as it was when he was a player, on the family farm.
I used to do a lot of contracting when I was younger, when winter rugby used to keep the weight off during the summer. And
so what kept you fit?
It helped during the summer, and you went back to pre-season training, not carrying excess weight, and you know, it helped me. The farm helped me during my career because, you know, just hard work, the physical side to it.
Paul's been known to shear 240 sheep at a sitting, after which wrestling with the logistics of running a National League club must be straightforward. I think I can see where you got your technique at the play the ball from there.
Yeah, it helped.
You'd have been done for holding down that sheep under modern rules, though.
Yeah, more than a 4-second play the ball.
Working up here on the farm, Paul, and then going down and sorting out Halifax, how do the two jobs compare?
Different, very different, but it's two parts of my life that I enjoy, and yeah, I've done it for a long time. And it's hard work, but you get used to it, and enjoyable, very enjoyable. Very big contrast.
Anyway, back into Super League for a club like Halifax now, do you think?
You've always got to hope so. It's you know, it's a big challenge for the club, and it's only a small town, and we've got a lot of hard work to do, but we feel as though we're heading in the right direction, and you know, things are looking good. Press on, really, right. Down on the skin. Ready, keep on.
You must get a feel for it after a while.
Like that.
I'm not expecting great slices of mutton coming off here.
I don't think you're ever going to make a shearer.
No, I don't think I have.
Come on then.
Who knows, one day Halifax might be in a position to buy back the farm. Whenever I come to Huddersfield, I'm struck by the scale and grandeur of this square. There's something a bit East European and monumental about it, with the statue of Harold Wilson striding out as though he's just come off the train from Westminster, or perhaps what was then the Rugby League playing constituency of Hythe. Rugby League was out to stage a revolution. This is the place to do it, and this, of course, is exactly where they did do that. And here, just a short stroll from the station for the delegates, is where it all began in 1895, the George Hotel. Inside, it's been transformed, not before time, to a fitting shrine to the game's history by somebody you might just recognise. Steve-O, that's him on the left when he had some hair, has begged, borrowed, scrounged and unearthed some fine memorabilia for the Rugby League Heritage Centre, which opened at the George Hotel during the summer.
And what it is, it's just a full information package for anyone that's interested in the game. Lots of memorabilia, but most important is giving families and especially young children an opportunity to understand how our game started. It's a tribute in many ways to all those great players ever since 1895 that has made, as I said before, the greatest game of all.
It's the obvious place to celebrate the game's heritage because Huddersfield is a rugby league town that's addicted to living in the past. This is the place that still means rugby league to most people in Huddersfield. More than a decade after leaving, 100 years almost since the team of all the talents, Fartown, still where the heart lies. Now they have a good competitive side playing at the Gal Farm Stadium, but supporters have been slow to warm to them, and those who do go still refer to watching Fartown. This was a place fans used to call at on the way to Fartown, and still do on the way to the Gal Farm. Apart from its other attractions, it delivers a unique reminder of a forgotten local industry. Mike, not many Slubbers Arms in the country.
No, there aren't. In actual fact, this is the only one. There used to be another one once upon a time, apparently, somewhere in Lancashire, but we are the sole remaining one now.
And what was slubbering?
A slubber was a person who removed the slubs from wool. Literally translated is when they did the initial twist, there were knots left in that, and the slubber removed those knots, which were the slubs. A long lost trade, because of course there's hardly any wool woven in this country now at all.
A curious artefact that, a bit like the one lurking in the Giants boardroom, the Alex Angel Trophy. There's one thing Steve-O hasn't got in his collection at the George, and it's this monstrosity. It might look a bit like a triffid, as though it's ready to strike, but it's in fact the badge of supremacy in European Rugby League. And in 1993, in Barcelona of all places, Huddersfield won it. One member of the European Cup winning side was Brian Blacker, who was on the subs bench that day in Barcelona. Brian is now a production manager at a Huddersfield factory where they make gearboxes for tanks and cogs for Formula 1 racing cars, among other things.
It was a tremendous game. I was actually subbing that day, but it was exceedingly warm. We were playing in 90 degrees temperature, 3 o'clock in the afternoon in Barcelona in the middle of May.
Still have anything to do with the game now?
Nothing directly with the game now. No, I still go down and watch Fartown a bit.
You still call them by the traditional name as well, I notice.
I do, yeah. Yes, I was brought up on the terraces at Fartown. My father was a supporter there. My brothers were supporters there, and it's hard to lose the tag, I suppose.
And whatever you call them, reigning European champions.
Reigning European champions, yeah.
On Oldham edge the grass is green, nicest view that e'er thou seen.
This is a bit of a landmark here in Diggle because we're actually across the Pennines. When you arrive here by canal or rail or on foot, you're officially in Oldham. Now you say what you like about Oldham, and many people do, but they've pulled off a pretty neat trick here. They've managed to be the only town in Lancashire that's the next part of Yorkshire. And call me biased, but I think they've got the best part, Saddleworth. Beside the narrow canal that burrows under the Pennines is an enticing little corner of the north of England, one that Yorkshire is loath to give up. Better still, this valley is the home to one of the most successful amateur rugby league clubs of the last couple of decades, Saddleworth Rangers. Terry Flanagan was one of the many future professionals who started his career in this idyllic setting.
The club, is nestled in the beautiful Pennines. We're very proud of that. But there's been a lot of hard work going on over the years, and in the 70s and 80s, the club really embraced the youth concept of building a club, and consequently in sort of the late 80s and 90s, the club was absolutely top of the tree and a real force to be reckoned with.
The highs and lows of rugby league in Oldham have been charted in the pages of the Oldham Chronicle, where Roger Halstead spent more than 4 decades writing about the club. He's reported their struggles through numerous crises, but never through a Challenge Cup semi-final, and now that he's retired, he never will.
I can still remember quite vividly the very first match I did, and it was a great baptism because it was a Challenge Cup semi-final. 1964, Oldham versus Hull KR at Headingley. 4 more semi-finals after that, 4 in fact in 5 years between 85 and 96, and beaten every time.
Would have been a very different story if Oldham had kept hold of all the players who were born in the town.
It certainly would. I mean, the place is a hotbed of amateur rugby, and it's produced players like Paul Sculthorpe, Danny Sculthorpe, Kevin Sinfield, Paul Heighton, Barry Mack, Yestin Harris, all world-class players, as you know.
And the tragedy and the irony of these 41 years that you spent covering Oldham, Roger, you're really a Rochdale Hornets supporter?
Well, yes, I certainly was, Dave. Always watched Hornets from being a kid. Never even went to Wembley with them.
So you've been a bit of a hoodoo, really, haven't you?
It looks that way.
Water sheddings, it used to be good to see 'em fight for ball in mud, but now the game has changed, they say they can't play dirty on TV.
The old ground is now a housing estate, but it still holds powerful memories for Oldham players who moved on to greater things.
If you look at it now, it's sad, and I think in a lot of ways when the sheddings got knocked down, it took a little bit of the stuffing out of Rugby League in Oldham.
We're somewhere now where a name that will ring a few bells with you, eh?
Yes, Alex Givens, yeah, he was the kit man when I first joined the club. My God, he was a cantankerous old so-and-so.
Yeah, so I remember him.
And if you didn't, look after him with a pack of cigars or a bottle of whiskey, or both in fact, your socks wouldn't match, your shorts were too small, and you'd be going out bare buff. I'm just showing them where I scored my first try. In your front garden.
First class down?
Yeah, in my first garden.
Are you being filmed?
Yeah. We played Leigh at home, and he just gave me a nice short ball, and I galloped full pace for about 8 metres and put the ball down over the line, the full swallow. Somewhere around here, yeah, the full swallow dive and everything, and couldn't believe, and threw the ball up in the air and saw my mum and dad in the crowd. And I thought that might be the pinnacle of my career. Yeah?
I always think there's something a bit spooky about housing estates built on old rugby grounds. It's like they're haunted somehow,
Yeah, I think there's a lot of twisted souls, isn't there? There's a lot of broken hearts on a pitch like Watershed. They were nearly all playing for Oldham.
And that's what it comes down to. You can cover it up with bricks and tarmac, but there remains some corner of a front garden that is forever rough-yed.
I found my love by the gasworks cross, dreamed a dream by the old canal, kissed my girl by the factory wall. Dirty old town, dirty old town.
They used to get a bit miffed in Salford about being the dirty old town of Ewan McCall's song. Dirty old city, if you don't mind. Despite all the regeneration at Salford Quays, the place does have an image problem, and it's still too easy to dismiss it as Manchester's ugly sister. Nobody knows that better than John Wilkinson, who's had nearly a quarter of a century with Salford, making him the longest serving chairman in Rugby League. And he's not overseeing matters at his welding supplies firm, he's running the club almost as a branch of the family business.
John, Salford as a city, a bit of an image problem, fair comment?
Yeah, I think over the years, it has been tarnished probably a little bit unfairly, but, I couldn't disagree that, Salford has probably been a little bit unfairly punished in that way, David, but it has that stigma that, that none of us want, and probably from a mindless few people, but I think it's in all walks of life, this, but, Weast, it has hampered the club over the years, there's no question about that.
Salford have often been at the cutting edge and are still remembered in France for their pioneering work there. And the Willows Variety Club has been another pioneering venture. It's still a popular venue on a Friday or Saturday night, but back in the 1960s, Salford was the place to be seen, with local royalty like Manchester United players among the throng. David Watkins, now back home in his native Wales but still in touch with the game, was one of the Rugby League glamour boys at Salford, signed from Rugby Union to make them the most star-studded team of their time.
We were called lots of things, I suppose, by everybody else, being a bit of a circus club. But I think the game benefited from the fact that we tried to play rugby league in a different way that had been played in the past. And whilst it came in from huge criticism from a lot of people, it really was exciting rugby. And when you had people like Richard scoring 39 tries, Charlton scoring 33 at fullback, Fielding 46 tries, it really gave to the brand of football that Salford were trying to play. And of course the crowds flocked. Not only did they have a great leisure centre at Salford, but they had a very good rugby team as well.
Salford is a city of 2 clubs, and one of them was born here. Swinton are still called the Lions because they used to get changed at the White Lion pub. They used to play across the road here, moved to the famous ground Station Road up there. Now, guess what, a housing estate, and way over there in Bury, and a bit closer to home at Sedgley Park. But if you really want a glimpse of the traditions of the club, you've got to look in here. The neighbours, though, have been pretty indifferent to the game, preferring the round ball, although Rugby League did have a foothold very near the boundary. This is the closest thing Rugby League has to a spiritual home in Manchester. This was the home of Broughton Rangers until they moved out and Manchester United moved in, and they still use it for their community programme. There's just this stand here as a reminder of Broughton's days on this pitch. And whilst it's Man City fans who say Manchester United ruined our lives, it's Rugby League supporters who can say Manchester United took our ground. But Salford have their eyes on a new ground just 10 minutes or so down the road from the Willows, and they've been given planning permission for a £32 million stadium. It's hard to visualise, but down here is the route to Salford's future. 250,000 people go over that bridge every day, and they're going to look right down, and what are they going to see?
We're going to actually see into the stadium. The stadium's a very innovative design, and we've had some very, very good architects who've been involved in projects all over the world to make sure that we take advantage of the view that people are going to get there. And it will actually take them into the stadium itself, so that they actually see it and be part of what's going on that field.
And that's the legacy I want to leave, David. You know, I mean, if you've been chairman of a club for 24 years, you know, you certainly love it, and Salford's meant everything to me, and the city of Salford as well. You know, I'm a Salfordian, and I'm proud of it, and I just want the best, and my game is rugby league, and if I can achieve that, that'll be absolutely, it'll be everything in my life.
It might have all those Coronation Street associations for a couple of years yet, but the future for Salford is a long way from that dirty old town on the other side of the motorway.
Lobby on draft and a beetroot chaser, lobby on draft and a beetroot chaser. Proud to be a Leither.
Leigh holds a special place in my heart because it was at Hilton Park that I was first introduced to Rugby League. To me, it's always been synonymous with the game. Without it, it's a deeply unremarkable town. Mind you, there's always someone new arriving. 6 times it's been Alex Murphy, but the day we were there, it was the latest Leigh coach, Tony Benson. He's the former coach of the junior Kiwis, who's now taking on the job of the relegated Centurions.
I won't forget when I first walked onto the ground the other day with Steve, and the atmosphere just hits you straight away. The tradition, it's fantastic.
The place is looking a little bit tired, don't you think? Does that concern you at all, or are you looking forward to the prospects of moving into a new ground with the club?
Well, I think I'm really lucky because for me the tradition of rugby league is pretty important, and the history, and this place reeks it.
As Benson arrived, Tommy Martin, part of a dynasty at the club, stretching back to the 1950s, was taking his last session as caretaker coach before going off to drive a lorry for a living.
I've had 17 good years in that. You know, I think it's time now to dedicate it to my wife and my little lad. You know, they've spent long enough going to places where they're out of season and, you know, it's half dead. So, you know, I think it's time to dedicate a bit of time to them now.
See yourself coming back into the game at some stage?
You never know. You know, there's been a few people who've always said once you're out of the game, you're out of it. At this moment in time, I can't see myself coming back. You know, I've had some fantastic times and some fantastic memories. You know, I'll always cherish, you know, being part of that team that got Leigh into Super League, and yeah, it'll be sad.
That says it all, really, doesn't it? All the optimism about going into Super League, tempered by the knowledge it was probably going to turn into a nightmare. But if any small town can succeed in Super League, it should really be Leigh. This is the old Bolton-Leigh railway line here, which has claims to be the oldest in the world. Now it just links a series of rugby league grounds. The Coliseum over there, Leigh East where we are, Leigh Miners a little further down the road, the old Barla Centre of Excellence, and beyond that the site of the new Leigh Stadium. Many of Leigh's finest hours, like the 1971 Challenge Cup win, have involved Alex Murphy. who recovered from a heart attack to return to work at the Coliseum this year. He knows what it takes to make Leigh successful.
What is it about you and Leigh? I mean, you're not a Leigh bloke, are you? But you've been back and to this club more times than anybody to any club, I think. What's the affinity between you and the place?
They're lovely people. You know, when I left St Helens, when I was 27 years of age, I'd never coached, but there was a feeling about the way that Tommy Sales sold the club and the people to me. My actual words were, when he asked me, would I go to Leigh, I said, you are joking. But I've never ever regretted it. It's the people.
Looking over her shoulder, we've got the 71 Cup final team. Leigh's finest hour perhaps under you. Not all renowned players when they first came here either.
Well, that was the team that gave Leigh and the supporters all the pride back. Some of them players were great players, went on to play for the country, win a lot of trophies. So you can dream in rugby league.
Take a clean pan, ooh, take some potatoes too.
People from Leigh, Leith as they're called, cling to the details that distinguish them from Wigan. The local delicacy lobby, as prepared by Leigh-born Rob Parker, is one of those distinguishing features.
I got the Leigh lobby blues, ooh, just like my mama do.
Smells good. One of the many things that distinguish you from those heathens in Wigan, eh?
Yeah, we like to think that we don't want to stick a crust on. We've had this recipe for years, and Wiganers are trying to take it off us, and the only thing that they can add on, because they're messing with perfection, is they stick a bit of a crust on it. That's it. You know, anything we can do to make ourselves different, we'll give a good go. So, lobby's the only thing we can do good at the moment.
The 2005 season might have left a sour taste in the mouth, but they'll tell you in Leigh that the ingredients are still there for a successful future.
Lovely. Thank you, Rob.
Yep. Let me know what you think.
Ah, it's the authentic taste of Leigh.
£30 that, we're literally giving it away. The proprietor of Herdman's Carpets in Twickenham is that rare thing, a London-born and bred professional rugby league player, the first of them to sign for Fulham. Martin Herdman has been plenty of other things as well. Heavyweight boxer, gridiron trialist, and a stage and screen actor with a long list of credits.
Strolling down the highway.
It runs in the family too. Josh, one of his 4 sons, is a regular in the Harry Potter films. Martin's trod the boards at places like the Richmond Theatre, which is just as fond memories of his days learning rugby league.
A friend of mine said, you want to come and see this rugby league down at Fulham? And I went to watch the first game against Wigan. And I was so impressed with it, and the way the forwards could just pick up a ball and run with it. And I just thought, wow, that's it. And so I wrote to Reggie, and I wrote to Reg Bowden. I said, listen, Reg, I think I can do a much better job than all your forwards out there.
You were short of confidence at the time, I remember that.
Yeah, I was, yeah. All the forwards at Fulham, Roy Lester, Harry Beverley, Tony Gawley, Ian Van Bellum, they all kind of helped me out. They told me where to go, where not to go. Don't run into this guy, you know, do this, do that. And it was a great sort of apprenticeship with these guys. Although my first game, trial game against Batley, Reg asked Harry Beverley to take me out the night before, and he got me absolutely hammered. And I was being sick on the coach going down to the game, and I wasn't too happy about that. But
welcome to Rugby League.
Welcome to Rugby League, yeah.
I've been everywhere, man.
Since Herdman's day, the club has had 3 new names and too many grounds to count, ranging from vast Premiership stadia like the Valley to down-at-heel venues in suburbia. This is the other end of the scale from playing on well-appointed football grounds. From 1985 to 1990, this was home to Fulham, the Polytechnic Stadium at Chiswick. It had its charms. This stand is a listed building, but then as now it was pretty dilapidated. Fulham fans volunteered to make it and the ground usable. It was a basic time in the club's history, but a lot of fans have very happy memories of those days.
Well, we used to stand on the grass bank, in the mud, in the rain. I think once when I had flu and really shouldn't have been there, we went and sat in the stand, but we were, you know, on the grass bank watching there, of course, with no floodlights. And I remember, I think it was York turned up late once, and I think they only played half an hour each way because there were no lights. It was very, very basic.
Would you believe they're now playing rugby league in public schools in the South East? In fact, you can now play and watch the game at every level, including the annual varsity game. And when the new Wembley Stadium opens in 2006, the Challenge Cup final will return to its rightful place.
And London Broncos are no more. They'll be Harlequins Rugby League, playing at the Stoop. It's a necessary move, according to the club's new chairman.
I think if you want the club to go forward, it's got to have a permanent base in London. The peripatetic style that we've had for 25 years, from Fulham on round through the Stoop to Brentford, via many other passing places, is not the way a proper professional rugby league club should be run. There's a lot of our supporters who love the name London Broncos, but we have been London Crusaders, we have been Fulham, we've had 25 years of different names and different grounds. I believe that this is the home now.
Except for those suffering from that extreme form of northern parochialism that makes them think London doesn't matter, we all have to hope he's right, and that there'll be nights at the Stoop when the club really feels like it's going somewhere.
Despite the music hall joke and George Orwell's mocking book title, Wigan Pier really exists. This is it, and it must be the most underwhelming tourist attraction in the north of England. But there's other stuff here, like Trencherfield Mill over there, which I like to think of as the original Rugby League rumour mill, and over there, recreated Victorian schoolroom where you can learn the 3 R's. When I was a lad growing up, I thought of Wigan as the town of the 3 Georges, Orwell, Formby, and because rugby league is everywhere here, Fairburn.
Yes, rugby league is everywhere. You can't even get into a taxi without running into a former Wigan player or coach, even one as recent and successful as Graham West.
Hello, Graham.
Hey, Dave.
Royce's Jim, please.
No trouble at all, mate.
His 1995 side won every trophy going, but it wasn't enough to keep him in a job. And now he's behind the wheel.
When I was actually playing and coaching, I did a lot of presentations at school of different things, and those kids have now grown up to going out age, and when I pick them up after the clubs and that, they all recognise me. Oh, I remember when you presented us with such and such, or you were my mum's favourite player, and I'm thinking, gee, I must be getting old.
Royce's Gym is a Wigan institution, strictly speaking an Ince institution, but that's too difficult to say. It's here that generations of rugby league players have honed their skills in the closely related discipline of wrestling.
Wrestling is a real Wigan tradition. From the late 1800s through to Billy Riley's time, there used to be a little gym in Welladure, and it was a hotbed for wrestlers. And I think a few old-time rugby league players went wrestling as well.
One Wigan player opponents never got to grips with was Billy Boston, still the most famous player the club has ever had. He came from Wales in 1953, and in 15 years at the club, scored 478 tries and played in 6 Wembley finals. Like many others who came to the town to play rugby, Billy B never left, and is still here, like some walking, talking civic treasure.
Well, I didn't make the decision, my mother made it for me, but it was the best mistake I ever made in my life. I've enjoyed every minute. I've loved the rugby league. I still love rugby league, and I still love Wigan. I'm a Welshman. I'll always be a Welshman, but I love Wigan too. I've done 50 years now at Wigan, and I think that's my home.
What aspect of your career you wouldn't have been so happy with? The 1957 tour to South Africa after the Australian tour, when they didn't take you, they left you behind.
Yeah, we played the World Cup in Australia. They went to South Africa to play 3 exhibition games, and they left me in Australia.
What do you think about that?
Well, I wasn't too happy. I mean, there was 8 Wigan teammates there, and they all went and left me in Australia. I mean, they said I could play. I couldn't play, and I had to stop in a different hotel. So I said, what's the good of going there?
There's nothing left at Central Park from Billy's day, and even players of a more recent vintage come over all misty-eyed when they revisit the place.
Well, Dave, looking at the old photograph here of Central Park, I think you'll find that just over there was the clubhouse and actually the changing rooms, where the pipes are was probably the wall and the tunnel at that end of the field where all the players used to run out. It was the World Club Challenge. It hadn't been played in this country really before, and the Wigan board decided to take the risk really with Manly. They offered them a £50,000 winner-takes-all prize, and they came out onto the pitch to just see the whole stadium packed with supporters.
The match itself, well, trialless in fact. 4 goals from Wigan actually won the game, and the entire Wigan side was made up of British players. Sean Wayne went on to win the man of the match in an amazing performance. Ron Gibbs, the Australian hardman, was sent off in the second half for a high shot, and again that erupted the crowd in the game. But at the end of the match, it was just a sense of maybe amazement that Wigan had managed to defeat the Manly side after such a long period of losing to Australia in both test matches and club games. I'd actually signed for Wigan the week before the match against Manly, and leaving the ground I never imagined I'd have a chance of playing in that sort of game, but fortunately it was the start of the golden era for Wigan Rugby, and I was lucky to be a part of it.
With Premiership football in town, some might argue that Rugby League is no longer as important to Wigan, but it's still in the very air and water of the place. It's what gives it its flavour. I haven't even mentioned pies or mint balls. St Helens has been described as an ugly place with a beautiful name, but its main industry was essentially decorative, as the town's museum reminds visitors. But if the glass industry isn't the focus for the town that it once was, then Rugby League still certainly is, as shown by this exhibition at the World of Glass of pictures by Brian Pears of Saints in the 70s and 80s. The scrum half for many of those years was Neil Holding on the right in the picture. Neil, a former Knowsley Road groundsman, is now a notable export to Liverpool FC that is. He's now groundsman at the Liverpool Academy, a state-of-the-art 10-pitch centre for their young players. St Helens have been trying to push into Merseyside, trying to make contact with the city and the community here. Can they ever crack what's always been a football city?
I don't think they'd ever crack it. I don't think they'll ever push right into the centre of Liverpool, because it's predominantly, well it is, it's football orientated with Liverpool and Everton. The business side, I know they've worked very hard towards getting businesses from Liverpool to come in and help at Knowsley Road. Now, if that's the case, if they can do it the business way, then hopefully the businesses may have some insight into trying to get the fans down to Knowsley Road. But on a personal note, I don't think that people will ever adapt or adopt Rugby League into Liverpool.
Well, if you want to win the Liverpudlians over, show them St Helens at their best. Now retired from playing, Chris Joint did something different this summer, and it involved a few full English breakfasts at Moreland B&Bs. Chris and Dave Lyon, another former Saint, spent a couple of weeks walking the Pennine Way to raise funds for cancer research.
Here we go again, lads.
It was an appropriate place for a player who was known as the quiet man.
I always kept myself to myself when I was kind of playing, and you know, I didn't kind of really socialise with the lads, even though they were kind of my best buddies, and I kind of enjoy my own company. And you know, what a 270-mile trek! I'm sure I'm going to thoroughly enjoy it. There's some video or DVD been brought out recently with it, and it won the #1 trial. It's kind of embarrassing, really, but you know, there's not many forwards can say they scored the best try in Super League over the last 10 years.
Hello, Dave. Welcome to Whittle's Rugby League Holy of Holies. Do come in, gentlemen.
From the quiet man to the jovial one, in Dennis Whittle, former local reporter and authority on the club.
I welcome you into the real sanctuary of rugby league football in Kill Lane.
And this is where you've written all those words over the years.
Over the years, that's absolutely correct.
Not much wall space left.
Yeah.
Inspiring atmosphere in which to write about St Helens, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Well, with me, it's been a labour of love since the early 1940s, when my father took me to Knowsley Road, and I've gone to the ground ever since.
Dennis's current project is a book about one of the club's favourite sons, Dougie Greenall, a Saints centre from 1946 to 1959, who was renowned for his fearsome tackling. He was so uncompromising that his own fans would boo him on occasion, and the Australians once chased him off the pitch.
I used to go on a try, but I'm kicking the goal. I'm on my own, you know.
So next thing, I'm looking around, no man your player in sight, you know. There's one of these Australian green jerseys. And I'm saying to him, get him now, we've got him now. Get him. I thought, you will, but I started running, I'll run off the pitch, you know, and they're chasing me off.
Yeah.
And when I get to the dressing room door, it's shut. You know, let me in. They're after me, you know. Anyway, I locked the door and let me in.
The Australians claimed that he clattered them with the aid of a plaster cast on his arm called Mammy. To him, though, that denotes something quite different.
Mammy, my mammy, I'll walk 1,000,000 miles for one of your smiles. My mammy.
Dougie may have had the tackling technique of a sinner, but he's still got the voice of a saint.
I had no idea you were so good. This is the Cumbria that people know. 14 million visitors a year come to the Lake District and its surrounding fells, although the Victorians considered it more of a threatening than an attractive landscape. Even this waterfall here, Moss Force, claimed to life a couple of years ago when somebody slipped climbing up it.
That's why you need people like the Cockermouth Mountain Rescue Team, although this casualty is one of their members on a training exercise. It's important practice, but for the team leader, it's badly timed.
They can be dangerous hills. They don't have to be high, they don't have to be craggy, they can be just a straight grass side like we've got here, and basically we can have an incident anywhere. In 2004 we lost 44 in total of all of the Lake District, which is about average for a normal year.
And fun though all this is, there's somewhere you might rather be this afternoon, I believe.
Unfortunately, I did ask Whitehaven if they would put the match back to 5 o'clock, but for one person they couldn't do that. Yes, I would rather be at the Whitehaven match playing Castleford. No doubt my missus will be on the radio and letting us know the score, so hopefully by 5 o'clock I'll be celebrating. 1, the finish of this course, and 2, Whitehaven in the grand final.
Derek missed one of the great days of Whitehaven's history, when they looked as though they might be bound for Super League, but a capacity crowd made sure they didn't. It's a reminder that in this other coastal Cumbria, Rugby League is part of the landscape just as surely as the crags are for the Lake District.
Joe could tackle hard and Joe could run. He only needed time for growing, and soon he'd signed his name to play, and to the city moved away.
Many of Cumbria's best go to play their rugby elsewhere, but Gary Charlton must have liked his home county. He came back from Australia and played for all 4 of its professional clubs: Carlisle, Barrow, Workington, and his home team, Whitehaven.
It's what people need up here is a Cumbrian team in Super League. You know, everybody wants to see the best players on show, and if you can get the likes of St Helens, Wigan, Hull up here, you know, to see people, you know, play, it'd be great.
2 of Gary's old clubs, Barrow and Carlisle, formed an unlikely merger. There are those who think the other 2 should do the same.
This is a highly significant spot around these parts. This is Distington, halfway between Workington and Whitehaven, and it was here that they earmarked a piece of land as a site for the new ground for a merged club. Perfect. Workington a few miles that way, Whitehaven a few miles that way, except nobody at either club wanted to merge. It never happened. It probably never will.
Competition is healthy, so maybe 3 or 4, whoever made the decision not to merge, maybe made the right one. At the time, I was for it, but maybe they made the right decision because of it. People said, come on, we're not going to merge, we're going to go ahead on our own, and it's happened.
1 division below Haven, Workington also had a successful season and almost reached their grand final. For Chief Executive June Kennedy, these are optimistic times at a club which has often struggled, especially in its 1 year in Super League. She's been with town for 28 years since being press ganged by Workington legend and man of mystery Tom Mitchell.
Tom Mitchell, through his time here, was just somebody you couldn't say no to, and you ended up doing more and more. And unfortunately, when his health deteriorated, he told me that he'd left the club for me to look after now. So every time I think about throwing the towel in, this little voice keeps telling me, and I'm sure he haunts me. But he was a wonderful man, he really was.
Cumbria has too often looked like the sick man of Rugby League. What this season has proved is that there is surely something there worth rescuing. Warrington for me is where Middle England begins. It feels a curiously rootless place, all roundabout shopping centres and newish housing estates, full of people who still look wistfully towards Liverpool or Manchester.
Looking for a place called England, trying to find where I belong. Retail park and Burger Kingdom, prairie field and factory farm, run by men who think that England's only a place to park their car.
There was nothing Middle England about Wilderspool though. It was unequivocally part of Rugby League land, with a blood-curdling reputation summed up by its nickname of the Zoo.
Through the wastelands of despair.
It stands empty now, but caretaker John Pryor has the keys.
Yeah, this was the club we used to come in before the game. Had a few pints in here, just about this point here, I think. It's a slightly healthier environment now.
He was in the players' bar, he was in
further up there.
That corner over there.
Yeah. Well,
the main bar was where
the punch bags are appropriately.
Les Boyd and Paul Cullen helped to give the old ground its reputation. Reunited recently, they hardly seem the sort to create mayhem.
The former chairman Peter Hyam bought a team, or created a team, with a certain feel. And the nickname stuck, and it was deliberate and it was well deserved, and we went out to earn it and justify it.
Les, I remember Peter Hyam saying when he signed you and Kevin Tamati and Alan Rathbone in the same week, I think, that he wasn't overdoing it because he wasn't really expecting you all to be available at the same time very often. That was a bit harsh, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was a bit unfounded, that criticism. I think Kevin and I played a fair bit of football. Alan mightn't have played quite so much, but I know it was a great team and it was a tough team, and you know, I think most teams didn't like to come to Wilderspool and play us in them days, so we had a pretty good reputation, but I think it was well earned by some of the boys.
The club has been on a journey since then, one which has been turned into a work of art by its former player Sid Domick to mark the launch of the Warrington Wolves Foundation.
The symbol at the bottom represents Wilderspool, and then as we follow through from the wire and the old industry turning us into the Warrington Wolves, and it transforms right up to our new stadium of the Halifax Young Stadium. What we've got is 125 circles, represents how long the club has actually been, you know, involved in our community here as well.
And these are like Sid's version of action pictures of the
game
itself, aren't they?
Yeah, so it takes us through all the work that, you know, the club has done on the pitch, but also off the pitch as well.
Back what I said today, everything went like clockwork.
There have been some notable imports here at Warrington over the years, not many of them bigger than Andrew Johns, but there's those who will tell you that Les Boyd, Brian Bevan were just as significant in their day.
We've had many good Australian players here, but Bevan, Brian, never looked the part. He didn't look, people said he's never a rugby player, but he proved them wrong by his feats throughout his career.
We've got this memorial to him here, the statue. You think that should still be down at Wilderspool though, don't you?
I myself, along with a lot of other people, I've always believed that it should be stationed on the Bevan Island as it was originally. It should be down at Wilderspool because, after all, Brian played at Wilderspool. He scored most of his tries at Wilderspool, and it would be a memento to himself and all the other great Warrington players of the time.
The statue has moved, though not as fast as Bevan himself. In fact, it's a town on the move, always on its way to or from the motorway, the one where Rugby League's future looks assured.
I'm sitting in the railway station, got a ticket for my destination.
Paul Simon rode Homeward Bound here on Widnes railway station 40 years ago. And if there was ever a place to make you feel homesick, be it for Manhattan or Runcorn, it is surely Widnes. Apart from Rugby League, Widnes is only really famous for its chemical industry and the reputation it brought it as Britain's smelliest town. Near neighbours taunt Widnesians for living in a toxic wasteland with three-eyed fish. It's all good fun, but is there any truth in it anymore? Well, there isn't much of a chemical industry left on this side of the Mersey, but there is this memorial to it in the shape of the Catalyst Museum. Oh yes, great fun. there's a lot more electricity in me than there is in these kids. That's the historic image of Widnes, from a small fishing village to that. Not as smelly as it used to be. Is that the best that can be said of Widnes? We need a proud Widnesian to mount a defence of the place. We've unearthed a lot of fossils and relics of the past on this trip. Let's meet Terry O'Connor.
Yeah.
He escaped to enjoy a long career with Salford and Wigan, but never moved away, and found himself drawn back here to end his playing days.
The smell seems to come over from Warrington, actually. Gets blew over in the wind. Yeah, it's great. You can see all the scenery around there, but people always think of the chemical factories and the Runcorn Bridge and the motorways getting out of it as quick as possible, but it's a lovely place to go up. I've lived there all my life. Even when I was at Wigan for 11 years, I drove in every day because obviously living in countryside like this is brilliant.
Widnes is the sort of place where you might just bump into the likes of Frank Myler out walking his dog.
Yeah, lad. See, legend.
Not only was he Great Britain's last Ashes winning captain, but he's also one of the players who used to draw big crowds to what was then Norton Park.
The original Cup Kings, aren't they, Widnes? When I used to go down there and it was packed. And I can say it now because the directors at Widnes weren't there when I was jumping over the fence and crawling under for nothing.
They won't charge you now.
No, they won't charge me now. So from all over the other side of the world, people know Widnes. Widnes is a massive name. It's a great town. I think they must have built probably 1,000 plus houses, and it's all people from outside the area that are moving in. They must have heard how good it is.
Must be something in the air, eh?
Well, if you notice the signs coming in, it's signposted Godstown. So and they've been on about changing the name from Widnes to Godstown.
I must have missed that. It wasn't on the way we came in, though.
It's hardly surprising you've missed something, Dave. Especially when you listen to you commentating on games. You miss everything.
Cut! He's got off the rails.
When Widnes were the epitome of rugby league glamour, they attracted fans from well beyond the town and players from everywhere, but especially from Wales, with the likes of Jonathan Davis, John Devereux and Paul Moriarty coming here long after the supply lines had dried up elsewhere. It was fitting then that this Welsh reunion should have been held at Widnes Golf Club. One who came to Widnes and still calls it home is Jim Mills, still remembered as much for his on-field transgressions as his affability off it.
I came into the side from Australia in 1972, and then Glyn Shaw came, who was a Welsh international, Paul Woods, and then obviously when we signed Jonathan Davis, who was the biggest name in Welsh Rugby Union, it seemed to attract the Moriartys and the Devereux, and you know, it was such a successful time for Widnes that it went from strength to strength. So we found that having Welshmen in the side, and you know, it brought success. So you know, you stick with it.
And I remember all the coaches coming up from places I couldn't pronounce, people wanting to see their old heroes playing rugby league at Widnes.
That's right. Bus loads every week, 2 or 3, 4, 5 bus loads every week from different towns, and they were always made most welcome, and they loved to come up and watch their old heroes play, and particularly they wanted to see a game of rugby league, and what better thing to do than come up and watch the Welsh lads play.
Proof that Widnes can put a song in your heart, and not just one about wanting to get away from the place. Rugby league land has been full of surprises, rarely more so than here in Widnes on the banks of the Mersey, where they built a promenade. There's golden sands here when the tide's out. Why it never caught on as a tourist resort is beyond me. It's about time this shirt went in the wash though, so I'm heading for home. Except in the sense that really matters, I've been at home all the way.